sessions, I'm honestly feeling a bit overwhelmed. There was a lot to learn today, and it really opened my eyes and some of the stuff that we did here in Pakistan. So I'm here today to talk about the new digital frontiers. Anyone heard of Bitcoin? I'm sure all of you must have. It just broke $60,000 recently, right? So it all started around 12 years ago when the pseudo-anonymous person, we don't know if it's a person or it was a group of people, by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. They created an algorithm that said they would challenge the world financial system, and they put it out there.
Fast forward 12 years later, we are on the cusp of a brand new digital revolution. So I'm sure all of you must have also heard of the term blockchain. But it's just this term that's thrown around vaguely, without much understanding. And I'm talking about Pakistan. There's a lot being done on this all over the world. And the purpose of my talk today over here is to give everyone some sort of inspiration as to the possibilities that are actually possible here in Pakistan. So blockchain is simply a ledger. It's a system of accounting. We have accounts in our companies, we have accounts in all sorts of different formats in shops. You take that concept of accounts and you put it online on a distributed ledger that is verified through a whole network of nodes that essentially approve what's going on in that. ये थोड़ा सा ठीक है fancy बात नहीं है. Actually बहुत simple concept है that a lot of these nodes are simply operating on a global level in a decentralized manner. So what blockchain essentially does for us is that it introduces decentralization, it introduces immutability meaning nobody can tamper with that data, and it introduces free access for everyone. So what this does is it gives us the birth of Web3. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with Web2, and even if you're not familiar, we're all using it. WhatsApp, Facebook, any sort of legacy software that you're using, everything falls under the domain of Web2. Why? Because this is off-chain. This is localized to centralized servers and systems. For example, this school must have an accounting system, and this school might be running an ERP. And all of that data must be hosted locally or on the cloud. What Web3 does is that you take that same concept and you distribute it all across the world. And this essentially unlocks the foundations of the new internet because you are now being able to monetize data in a brand new way. You are able to take, let's say, I want to bring an example to you guys. Let's say real estate. Right now in Pakistan, real estate land records are maintained by perhaps LDA. You buy a plot in DHA, and over there, you'd be signing these contracts. There'll be a lot of paperwork involved, and everything goes into a centralized ledger. Now, what Web3 does is it allows us to take that same concept and fractionalize it. By fractionalization, what I mean is you can take a property and break it down into 1,000 pieces. You put it on the blockchain, and effectively 1,000 people can buy a fraction of that same property. Similarly, let's say there's a piece of art, the Mona Lisa. Now, I'm sure anyone wants to buy any famous painting. It might be too expensive, but let's say there are art speculators out there, and they're interested in buying at least a piece of some art. Effectively, Web3 unlocks that. Now, in our next slides, I'm going to go into a bit more simplicity of what all of this is, because honestly, the whole point of today's talk is to showcase that all of this can be done from Pakistan as well. And I've worked with a number of startups. I've worked with a number of protocols across the world. And it's really unfortunate that, maybe we're not seeing that level of engagement here in Pakistan. So how can the tech community leverage this opportunity of a lifetime? I'm sure all of you have heard of AI. Yeah, it's a buzzword these days. And then real-world assets. Real-world assets are basically any sort of assets that exist in the real world. So now what blockchain can do is, okay, I need a moment to just take this back a notch because I'm realizing this is more of an art school. And do we have any computer science students over here? Oh, we have plenty. Oh, so you, okay, fair enough. But don't worry, I have something for the artists as well.
It's arts and science.
It's arts and science?
Yes.
Okay. So AI are autonomous agents on the blockchain. AI was really brought into the limelight with the introduction of ChatGPT, right? What ChatGPT does is it allows us to feed it input and effectively take out an output that is computed by these algorithms that exist, and effectively it reduces our workload. Now what Web3 is able to do is it's able to take all of these algos and it can effectively put it on the blockchain and tie it to real-world distributed ledgering systems. And real-world assets, like I said earlier, real-world assets, for example, there's a property here that you can fractionalize and effectively distribute it and give ownership of it to various different stakeholders. Gaming. Web3 democratizes a lot of things. Web3, because it's decentralized all across the world, it democratizes gaming as well. So I don't know if a lot of you people play games over here, but for example, there's this game called Dota, very famous, League of Legends. Now players, they actually end up grinding hours and hours and hours, trying to farm different skins on those games. They're trying to farm different XP points. But all of that is effectively centralized to that game server. You cannot take those assets, that time that you have invested, and monetize it. What Web3 gaming enables us to do is take those assets and put it on the blockchain so that that ownership is transferred back to you. And we're seeing these new platforms build out in which there's a democratization of all these assets. And you can take these assets and sell them directly to different consumers. So we're seeing new eBays popping up on the blockchain. We're seeing new marketplaces popping up. And this is revolutionizing the way assets are traded online. Now, previously I mentioned, how can the tech community leverage this opportunity of a lifetime? So I met with this team. They were from India. This was at a conference in Korea. They came up with this novel solution in which they said, you know what, there's this big project called Ethereum. I'm sure all of you must have heard of Ethereum. And I didn't mention this earlier. Bitcoin was simply a blockchain ledger. What Ethereum did was, Ethereum came and it gave programmability to that ledger. So effectively, you have an accounting system, and now you can program things on top of it. And that just changed the game altogether again. But then there was another problem that came. There was no scalability. It was a system that was limited, and it could not compute high transactions per second. So for example, Bitcoin is able to process around 7 to 8 transactions in 1 second. Ethereum is able to process 15 transactions in a second. And that was very small, because Visa can process over 50,000 transactions per second. So these people, they saw this opportunity and said, you know what, we're going to make a scaling solution for this. And they said, we're going to take the data from Ethereum, take it off the chain, compute it somewhere else, and then throw it back into it. And this was such a novel and brilliant idea. And these were a team of standard software engineers. I met them personally, and at that time, nobody really knew who they were. This team is called Matic, Polygon. It's another big project that's out there. And this started very small. Today, they're a $12 billion company. They're headquartered out of Singapore, and Mark Cuban's invested in them, and it's pretty much in the top 10 market capitalizations when it comes to different projects. So the whole point is that it was such a novel idea, it was such a novel concept. They took this idea and concept, they worked on it, they built it, and now they're one of the biggest companies out there in the Web3 world. We have so many examples in which different people just came up with different ideas in this emerging landscape. Why? Because it's very early. The Web3 landscape is still in its infant stages. We had the 2000 dot-com bubble. I'm sure a lot of you people must have gone through it and seen it. And it was all the hype at that time. Who knew that Amazon would be born? Who knew Google would come out on top? I mean, we had MySpace, and we had Orkut, and we had so many different legacy names, right? Where are they now? Well, they're not popular anymore. Nobody used them. Why? Because they didn't innovate. And the Googles and the Amazons and the Microsofts, they went on to innovate, and they kept becoming bigger and bigger. Why? Because they took the dot-com bubble, they worked on different ideas, they kept innovating, and they kept expanding. So right now, we are at that stage. We are at the stage of where the previous dot-com bubble technically happened for Web3, and we're just in the expansion phase in which new concepts are coming out every single day. Have any of you heard of NFTs, non-fungible tokens? So we all saw those Bored Apes in which skyrocketed in value, and there was a lot of hype around all of that. There was this kid who made a couple of 100 drawings of a whale. He took his drawings, and he said, you know what, I'm going to make NFTs out of them. He put it for sale. People went crazy over it. They went to like $1,000 a piece. Why? Because it was a kid who was able to use technology, and he just put it out there. Now, okay, he had the first mover advantage, but then what's to say that generative AI might have the second mover advantage? AI right now is a big thing, and we're just seeing the applications roll out. Now, if somewhere in Pakistan were to work on generative AI, come up with a new concept, maybe put it out there, and it's an art collection that really appeals to the masses, who knows, it might pick up. Games are being revolutionized as well right now. Effectively, this is a big advantage for our country as well. Previously, games, they used to require hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds and millions of dollars for big titles to really come in and be worked upon. But now with AI, you can effectively take games and use generative AI, and you can use a lot of different AI computations to take that task and boil it down to a team of 5 to 10 people. And this really helps us in working out of a country like Pakistan because it brings opportunity to the local level. DApps are basically decentralized applications. So you have centralized applications, and then you have decentralized applications. You take an application, you just put it out there on the blockchain. And through that, you're able to technically target an audience of hundreds of millions of people that are out there and working on blockchain already. And they're part of that world. So my whole point today is that blockchain and Web3, it's a new digital realm. Moore's law states that the number of transistors on microcircuits are going to double every single year. And that's the same way we're seeing the technology parabola play out. It's a curve that goes up like this. And we're at a very vertical stage of the technology adoption curve. And if we are unable to latch on to what technology today is building, which unfortunately in Pakistan, we really aren't. We have a very limited number of gaming studios. We have a very limited number of software houses that are actually building products over here. So my message to the students today is that work on this. Look at what this is. Join some sort of a decentralized organization. All you need to do is open your browser, scan different projects, and you can just join the communities and figure out what's going on. Did you know there are actually mini job posts within all of these different projects in which you can just sit at your home and you can scour the market and you can work on different jobs, especially as a computer. And even students can do that right now. It's all about taking part of that new paradigm. So I've actually put up my LinkedIn QR code here just because I wanted to let you guys know that work on your LinkedIn profiles. LinkedIn is your ticket to getting the right connections in. Because if you work on it today, It really builds out a whole history, and you need that history right now to get in touch with good projects. Start working on those profiles. Start building a whole resume online. Paper CVs might be a thing of the past, because I'm not saying they're going to be completely outlined, but as a person who's working on a digital frontier, it's important to build that online repo. And LinkedIn is really, really a good way to start building that out. Thank you for the talk. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure to be here today.